computer and I'll send it to the cloud.
Okay.
All right. Did you get notification that it's recording?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I think we're all set. So we'll get started. So welcome and thank you for joining us to our session, our webinar today on collaboration is more than working together.
So we are STEM consultants. We are teaching and learning consultants of STEM with IU13. I am Nikki Wilkinson. My background is high school science teaching. I've taught 6 through 12 science.
And I'm Christina Fulton. Like Nikki said, I'm a teaching and learning consultant in STEM, but my background is in math and computer science. Most recently, I was a math and computer science teacher at a local high school in Lancaster County. So this session is part of a series of webinars that Lancaster Lebanon IU13 is facilitating to provide responsive, high quality, focused professional learning experiences that highlight practical and actionable strategies for accelerating learning. The topics and contents within this virtual professional learning series were developed as a result of the feedback and supports requested by IU13 member school districts, evolving research and data on pandemic recovery, Pennsylvania Department of Education guidance, and statewide PAIU network expertise.
So we just kind of have to go through these introductory slides just to kind of, again, because we're recording, anyone can come back and play back. And so accelerated learning, there are 4 components within the Pennsylvania Department of Education and their accelerated learning framework. The first is high quality academics, and that's kind of what ours is going to focus on today. And the purpose of this component is just to define the instructional changes needed to foster a culture of data-informed decision-making, to ensure that every learner has access to the instructional strategies, materials, and supports needed to successfully engage with and master grade level content. The second pillar is supportive learning environments. And the purpose of this component is to ensure that we're just providing safe and inclusive spaces for learning, forming positive and supporting relationships and supporting learners and staff to mentally and socially recover. The third component is healthy systems conditions, and the healthy systems component focuses on engaging a diverse group of stakeholders within your education community to gain a deeper understanding of the school system and just to utilize the continuous improvement process and tools to address systemic needs, including staffing, technology, and scheduling that will create the conditions for accelerated learning. The final component is what is called the system of scaffolded supports. This component provides a continuum of evidence-based academic, behavioral, social, and emotional supports that are aligned with student needs. So again, like I said, today our webinar is going to kind of fall under that high quality academic component of PDE's accelerated learning model. And so really our goal today, we want you to walk away with very practical things. So our participants will understand how, when used purposefully, collaborative learning can be a powerful tool, just an accelerating learning for all learners. And like I mentioned earlier, I dropped the link in the chat. We have all kinds of materials and resources, and they can be found at our bit.ly.
So to get started on our content, I first wanted to make sure that we all have a common understanding of the effect sizes. This is in particular from John Hattie. It's his effect sizes. And effect sizes are measures of the impact of educational initiatives on achievement. He designed 0.4 to be the hinge point, which means it will have a greater than average influence on achievement. So that's part of why the 0.4, the image that I chose has the 0.4 in the middle so that we could really think about that hinge point, because an effect size of 0.4, that hinge point is equivalent to advancing a child's achievement by 1 year. Something else that's important to think about is that a typical teacher's effects, so that's not just putting a teacher in a classroom or putting a body in a classroom, it is just a typical teacher doing what they would normally do, and not just the warm body effect, but they would typically have an effect between 0.2 and 0.4. So that's part of why when we're looking at some of our different, now I can't think of the right word.
Strategy.
Yeah, there was another word. Strategies is what came to mind. And initiatives is what came to mind. There was another word that I had in my head and I just lost it. But it's part of why we're looking at things that are 0.4 or higher, so we can work towards accelerating that learning for students so that they're achieving at least, if not more than 1 year of growth in an academic school year. So as part of influences, that's the word that was trying to come out of my mouth, and it was sitting here in my head. So influences on student achievement, we pulled out 4 different influences on student achievement that we felt were strongly, like collaboration had a strong part in. So the first one that we pulled out was cooperative versus individualistic learning that has an effect size of 0.59. And cooperative learning is more effective than learning individually is the underlying idea there. But cooperative learning is also only effective when you structure it carefully and you keep your groups small. And most importantly, this is where the collaboration comes into play. You're teaching your students how to work in groups. Classroom discussion has an incredibly high effect size of 0.82. Classroom discussion is a method of teaching that involves the entire class in a discussion. The teacher stops lecturing and students get together as a class to discuss an important issue. However, in some of the other readings that I've been doing, a classroom discussion can also be small group discussions where those discussions are not necessarily happening with a class of 28, but instead those small groups are having that discussion with one another. That classroom discussion allows students to improve communication skills by voicing their opinions and thoughts. Teachers also have benefit from classroom discussion as it allows them to see if students have learned the concepts that are being taught. So it creates an environment where everyone learns from one another. Concentration, persistence, and engagement also can go with motivation. That has a 0.48 effect size. Engagement has long been regarded as a desired outcome for schooling and a predictor of achievement and lowered educational risks. Researchers have theorized that cognitive engagement is the ultimate outcome of a student's ability to concentrate on a task and to persist despite challenges. So with this comes the idea of collaboration, because there's power in groups and there's something more engaging for a lot of students about having a friend. And having that connection to other people. So that can encourage some of that engagement piece to really help make this a potential indicator of student achievement. The last one that we pulled out was peer tutoring. It has an effect size of 0.55. Peer tutoring involves one student helping another student to master something that they have not yet learned in class. This is something that in my experience as a math teacher that I used the concept of peer tutoring a lot with the idea of collaboration. After I've taught my students my expectations and taught them how to work together, we worked on some peer tutoring strategies, and I found this to be something that was in my comfort level to work on.
So Christina and I both just left the classroom. I actually started the school year. Christina taught as well through the pandemic last year. And so I know that I've had to kind of rethink grouping. As I've talked to my colleagues, I know, and maybe this is your experience, I don't know if you even want to drop in the chat. It's almost like we are teaching kids how to work together again as they've come back from being online. Just some social skills of working in a group. I know that I coach in a school with elementary kids. And it's funny when they're collaborating, you can tell right away if it's not going well because someone cries or tattles. And so what we really want to kind of do as we're rethinking and reshaping group work is to take it to the next level. And so you can just kind of look through and skim through this. I tried to bold some of the more important points. Collaborative learning is a form of instruction that promotes an active classroom learning environment. Increased conceptual understanding, retention, problem solving. But again, there has to be some intention behind how we are going to collaborate. And that's kind of what we're going to take you through. So we had to kind of give you all the research behind the why of what we're going to talk about today and just some of the actual practical strategies that you can use in your classroom tomorrow. So again, we are looking to promote that intrinsic motivation, those interpersonal skills, and just for kids to kind of engage in argumentation in a positive way. So we're going to ask you, I know it's the end of the day and we're tired. We're going to ask you to throw your cameras on and your mics on for a second because we have an activity to do. And it's funny because we planned this activity before Wordle became popular. Wordle's just taken over. Anyone here playing Wordle? My family, anyone? Hands up. You know what Wordle is? Do you guys know what Wordle is? Yeah. Okay. My family has like a group text that we are all like competing against each other in Wordle. So we're going to give you a challenge. And if we were in person, we'd have you work together. So the following here is a list of common words that are used at school. So your job as a group, and Christina, do you want to set a timer for me?
Sure.
I can grab my phone.
I got it here.
Okay. So we're going to give you how much time? 2 minutes?
Yeah.
2 minutes to kind of talk through what these words are. So you can't cheat, but what do you think these words are that are commonly used at school? So if you get one, go ahead and share, kind of talk through. It's hard doing this virtually. So let me ask you, do you think high school, middle school, elementary school, where would these words be used? And I will say they're used at all levels. Christina, tell me when we hit a minute 30 and I'll give a clue.
Well, the third one looks like hockey to me.
You are correct. Yep.
Because I was trying to think about, so like I teach English and I was thinking about what letters go together. Well, C can be CH or can be CK.
You're totally right. It's hockey. So does that give you any kind of clue what the other ones are?
So soccer for the second one.
Yes. I love how you use your strategy.
It's about 30 seconds left.
Say that again.
Basketball.
Yes, is the first one. And I know what the fourth one is, but I don't know what the last one is. So someone needs to solve that one.
Volleyball's the fourth one.
Yes.
Oh,
Lots of L's. So what are some other sports that have a G in them? Because that's kind of uncommon.
it has a G.
Golf, not golf. Maybe it doesn't have to start with G, but
No F.
Our 2 minutes is up. You don't know, Nikki?
I don't know. Do you know what it is, Christina?
No.
Well, I see 2 L's, so ball. Oh, I got it. Take the word ball out. It's what we're not allowed to play anymore.
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball. Yes. Exactly. Dodgeball.
Wow.
So here's the deal. And if you want to turn your cameras and mics off, you can. And this is a question I ask myself as I look back at how I kind of worked with students. And when I put kids in groups, was I actually teaching collaboration, or was I teaching kids how to get along in a group? Almost like classroom management. And when we're looking at collaboration, what we need to do is give kids a hard enough task that they can only do it with the help of a group. And so collaboration means that you are creating new understandings to a problem or task. And what that really means, if we're really going at it at a deep level, would be disagreement and finding ways to combine those opposite points of view. Now we see this. Okay, we see this at all different levels, that students sometimes because of social pressure or whatever, they will avoid conflict because they just want to get along. So how do we design engaging tasks to break through that barrier where there can be more than one answer, that you're looking for disagreement? And so as we even take this a step farther, we think about how necessary this is as a workplace skill to teach kids just to engage, not just in arguing, but in evidence-based arguing, and to use that task as an activity to take them to that next level. And so here are just some questions as we are going to give you examples, and as you think through some examples that you can kind of ask yourself, is this a classroom management group work, or is this a collaborative group work? And so if it's really kind of classroom management, the questions on the left are kind of the questions that you're gonna ask. Are my kids on tasks? Are they bugging each other? Are they distracting each other? Are they distracting themselves? Are the stronger students just telling the struggling students what to do? Can they complete this without everyone actually being engaged? Are they just sharing separate information to get the project finished? Whereas collaboration, you have to have kids kind of contributing as equals. They're creating that new understanding, that plan, their idea. They're creating something new so that there's just that new understanding. And again, having more than one answer is a great way that they all have to be contributing and coming to a common solution.
Not only just is there more than one answer, but there could be more than one entry point to the activity. So building better collaboration, we're going to just break apart a little bit more about what Nikki talked about with how you would want to design your tasks or activities to build that collaboration. Your tasks needs to create complex learning activities. So like Nikki said, that they need to be able to work together or have specific roles within that activity so that they all have a part to play. They need to build opportunities. Your tasks need to build opportunities for consensus and discussion. So that might mean that in the beginning, you might be considering some sentence stems or sentence starters to encourage some of those discussions and building consensus and ways to be able to agree and disagree with one another to build that sense of collaboration. They need to focus on stretching expertise, so working towards a goal and learning something. And they need to minimize opportunities for free riding. So I've been reading a lot of math books, and the one book that I've been reading recently came out just in 2021. It's called Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics by Peter Liljedahl. And this quote came from the book, and I was just really struck by it and felt that it tied in really nicely to the tasks that we're talking about that would require collaboration. So he says that good problem-solving tasks require students to get stuck and then to think, to experiment, to try, and to fail, and to apply their knowledge in novel ways in order to get unstuck. So it's a lot like thinking about the productive struggle and choosing a task that might encourage that productive struggle. So it's not one that's too difficult for students that they are too frustrated, but has multiple approaches to it or multiple answers so that they still have an entry point and a way to be able to think through things using one another. So what do you think, Nikki? Do you think we have time to break off for 6 minutes to each watch this individually?
I do. Oh, I was grabbing the link.
Okay.
We are not allowed to show the video because of the recording. And so have any of you done the 100 number task before? It is not just the math activity. It's a collaborative activity. Just curious, have any of you heard of the 100 number task? Okay, so I'm going to assume you haven't. So I'm going to go ahead and drop here into the chat a link to the YouTube video. And we're going to, Christina will just set her timer. We'll come back. How about we give you an extra 2 minutes We'll come back at 4 o'clock and we'll kind of talk about what you saw. And again, what we're asking you to kind of look for is the task itself, but also look for some of those key questions and just some of those points of where you see this activity building better collaboration. So did everyone get the link? I dropped it into the chat.
Yes, thank you.
Sure, thank you guys.
All right, so we'll come back together at about 4 o'clock and continue with our discussion about collaboration.
Okay, let's come on back together. And what did you notice or wonder as you watched the video? Anything you took note of? Christina, do you want to talk at all about how this activity would work?
I was trying to use the awkward wait time. We have it linked on the presentation on the slides, but I'm also going to give a link to the 100 number task. The 100 number task, at least, I don't know if this was created by Sarah Vanderwerf or if it was created by someone else and she's altered it, but Sarah Vanderwerf created a blog post about the 100 number task and how she uses it to get students talking. She does a really nice job of talking about how she uses the task to encourage collaboration within her students. And she's also, just as a side note, in case you are someone that has an interest in mathematics, she's one of the keynote speakers at PCTM this summer at Pennsylvania Council of Teachers in Mathematics. So if you like her and you're interested in math instruction, that might be something that you might want to keep in mind for this coming July. But she gives students this, she puts it upside down. She has them in groups of 4. And then she has them flip the numbers 1 through 100 on a sheet of paper over and ask the students to highlight the numbers 1 to 100 in order. So in numeric order. Student 1 has to do 1, student 2 has to do 2, student 3 has to do 3, student 4 has to do 4, and then student 1 has to do 5. So they have to go numerically and they have to go one at a time. So student 1 can't do numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of like they each have to take turns. They find that it takes a long time. She times them, and then she asks them to do the task again after giving them some time to be able to come up with some kind of strategy to be able to approach the problem. It's pretty neat, and I like that the students can see a difference in their time as with the number of attempts that they have, and there are some neat patterns within it as well.
So I'm curious, Kara, as an English teacher, if you've ever tried hexagonal thinking. I see this. Have you ever done this? I see this working really well in history or in ELA, but I also think it would work great in really any other class. So basically, hexagonal thinking is you cut out 20 hexagons and you can use pretty much anything. You can use vocabulary words, you can use pop culture. I linked a picture here from the Cult of Pedagogy. I don't know if you follow her at all. She's pretty awesome. Jennifer, now I'm forgetting her name. Is it Gonzalez with Cult of Pedagogy? So there's no one right answer. And so it takes a lot of collaboration and discussion of how they want to group these hexagons. So you just give them a stack of words, you put kids in a small group, and then they have to move them around and decide what should be beside each word. And then they kind of argue and discuss. And again, there are multiple answers. And so you just kind of build this web of original thinking through this hexagonal thinking. And lots of options of either having kids present what theirs are, do a gallery walk around to look at each one of them. But you can use, again, anywhere from 10 to 20, whatever number you want to pick. You just put them on a hexagon and then put kids to work making connections.
So accountability talk, I'm going to drop a link in for that as well, just because there's more to it than what is shown on the screen. We just have a small capture of the accountability talk. The accountability talk can use some different hand signals like agree, a thumbs up, disagree, thumbs down, and then I have something to add, or maybe I have a question. There's some different hand signals to that, which can make kids feel a little bit more comfortable in sharing and sharing what they're thinking about. It might encourage some more participation. But the accountability talk also uses some sentence stems that are things that you can cut out in cards and have at the student's desk, or something that can be posters along the wall, to give some students some ways to be able to talk to one another respectfully, so that they can agree, they can disagree, and they feel comfortable being able to have those conversations with one another, so that they know how to handle those disagreements and those conflicts.
The next strategy is called 2-4-6-8. And again, we're just trying to get kids to think on their own, think together, and just come to new understandings. And as I was thinking about this could be 1-3-5-7 if you want, or however you want. But basically you ask kids to think first independently. So maybe they read a math problem, maybe they read an article, maybe they look at a science problem, lots of different things. Maybe they even, like, if you're a music teacher, they look at a piece of music. And so they spend 2 minutes on their own with that, that problem, or whatever that piece is that you give them. And then the next 4 minutes, they discuss their thinking with a peer. Then they go back and they make a plan for solving that problem or whatever task you've given them. And so they work independently again for 6 minutes, and then they come back together again for 8 minutes and kind of justify their answers. So again, it just kind of gives you a scaffold of discussion for kids to kind of go back and forth between that independent and that collaborative thinking. Before we kind of wrap up today, I would love to know, what are some of your ideas that you're using right now to build collaboration with your students? Because again, kind of across the board, we're hearing teachers say it's been a struggle getting kids to do good work in groups. So is anyone willing to kind of unmute and just share your experience?
Sure. Something that helps, whether it's like, sometimes there are just like tasks that like don't have kind of like exciting value to them, right? Like, but you have to do them. Like,
Yes.
you have to review the vocab before you read the thing. Otherwise we won't understand what it means. And so if you make it a competition or like a timed thing with a partner, not only do they like that sense of like, ooh, I get to work with someone, that makes it more fun, but also like the timer helps keep them accountable and on task. I found if I don't have a timer, that it's more often that we'll get off topic and not stay focused.
Mm-hmm. Kara, have you tried the Pear Deck Vocabulary Factory at all?
I've heard of it. I have not tried it.
Yeah, it's a very, very fun collaborative activity, especially in English. For vocabulary. I've used it in science before. And so it's basically like, what, Pictionary?
Yeah, I've seen, and then it like, you can like pick out which ones you think are.
Yep. And then it all dumps into, is it a quizzes at the end? Yeah, lots of collaboration because there's voting and all kind of stuff. Amy, Linda, or Tabitha, you guys have any suggestions of what you guys have done successfully in terms of collaborating with kids in your classroom?
I can say I resigned 4 years ago, and so I haven't been in the classroom during this whole pandemic, but I do have 2 elementary school kids. And I resonate a lot of what you're saying with the emotional dysregulation of kids, and just, I think a lot more needs to be done as far as the soft skills, and just being able to help the kids with the fact that they went through a traumatic event, and how that, I don't know, just how focusing on that will help these collaborations in the classroom make it easier. I know that a lot of kids just in our neighborhood end up doing what you were saying, like even when they're playing in free play, they can't solve problems and they end up crying or coming to a parent, which really isn't age appropriate in 1st and 3rd grade. And so I don't have anything to say except for I feel for all of you that are teaching during this time. And this is a lot of new information for me. I hadn't heard of any of these strategies. It amazes me how quickly things change in just a few years in education. So
Amy, that's just great input though, to hear that you're seeing it even like a neighborhood play. It was fascinating for me. In the fall, I was sitting in and listening to college professors say they are seeing this at the college level, like the behavior. And it's funny because my son is a senior in college and he's a TA for freshmen. He's like, Mom, these kids, they don't even know how to like be in class. So it is like K to higher ed that we are seeing problems with this. Like, I like how you said, did you say emotional dysregulation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is a professor at Penn State, and he said he's just kind of, it's been a downward trend, but essentially these past 2 or 3 years have really taken them back. And, you know, my son's first grade teacher said they don't even have kids that can sit in chairs for extended periods of time because they don't have the core strength or the ability. So there's a lot of struggles beyond just academics that I think this collaboration, you know, piece will help build.
Yeah. Tabitha or Linda, I didn't want to jump in if you guys had anything to share. No? Okay.
I was thinking more about some of the parenting aspect because I have 2 elementary school age kids as well. So I identified a lot with what you just shared with us, and some of the things that I'm finding that I have to do, particularly for my 4th grader, is before he has like a play date or something that we haven't done in years, just because of the pandemic, we have to talk a lot about some different behaviors and some manners and things that we might not have had to talk about before because they were normal parts of his life that had disappeared with us being more isolated. Especially with having family members that are at higher risk, we've been more isolated than some of his other friends. So I've really noticed how he and my kindergartner relate to other kids, and we have to do more intervention when they're playing with other kids than I would have anticipated at this age.
So I guess like pre-COVID, we would have just said to kids, go get in groups and work on this task. And we wouldn't have thought second about it. But I think we just have to kind of redefine what collaboration is. And just as a teacher, as we're planning activities, it is more than just getting along. Okay. There are a lot more skills that we need to embed into collaboration. It helps if we choose that common goal that's just a little bit too hard for the individual, but not too hard for the group to work toward. Again, it's collaboration is how we want to teach our kids to share their ideas, whether we're using sentence stems or kind of giving them a framework of going back between individual and group thinking, to come to that new understanding. And the hardest piece of this is it's intentional. We have to be, as teachers, intentional to design it as part of the learning activity. It's no longer, okay, get in groups. It is ahead of time pre-planning, saying, how is this activity going to build collaboration and what collaborative skills do I want my kids to be working on?
So we've already had a little bit of an opportunity to reflect and share, but we just wanted to make sure that we incorporated more opportunity to reflect and think about what questions you have and some takeaways. So some reflection questions that we thought about is, what questions do you still have? Are there things that we can investigate or talk about, like potential other resources? Where have you experienced success or unsuccessful student collaboration? And how do you think collaboration can increase student achievement in your classroom? So this is an opportunity to reflect on your own if you want to, and just kind of take yourself, have a couple of those quiet moments, or if you're willing to unmute or type in the chat, this is an opportunity to be able to share and collaborate with one another as well.
And just to kind of jump back to the slides that Christina talked about in the beginning, let's just kind of go back to them and just talk about, again, like when done successfully, collaboration has the ability to accelerate learning and to kind of, again, move that. And what was that number again? I'm still learning what these numbers are. Christina, what's that number?
The hinge point, the 0.4?
Yeah. What's that number called? It's the, from the matrix.
It's the hinge point.
The effect size. It's the effect size.
Oh,
Yeah.
All of the numbers
Yeah.
are the effect sizes. I got you.
Yeah. So it's just this research base that says, man, you know, if you're having rich classroom discussion, that's double what that hinge point is of 0.4. So maybe that gives a little bit more context to what those numbers were that Christina shared earlier. Just as we wrap up today, I just wanted to remind you that you do get Act 48 credit for this. So what we would ask is that you just go back and you have to complete, well, let me read the exact wording here. As a reminder, IU 13 will award Act 48 credit to registered participants who actively participate for the entire duration of the live webinar. In order to receive Act 48 credit, participants must attend the full 1-hour webinar and complete the Act 48 evaluation in Frontline. So make sure you go back to Frontline where you registered, and there should be an evaluation, and just submit that, and then that will kind of go so that you get the credit.
Some of our main references are linked on our reference slide. So we, from Edutopia, we use the 5 ways to bolster students' confidence in math, how cooperative learning can benefit students this year. The book that I mentioned earlier about the problem solving quote, the building thinking classrooms in mathematics. And then we also use the Visible Learning for Mathematics grades K through 12 book, and that's where some of the effect sizes came from. And some of our information about the effect sizes and the hinge point came directly from John Hattie research with Visible Learning. For more information, you can visit IU 13's Accelerated Learning website.
Sorry. There you go.
And there are several accelerated learning resources available from PDE, a few of which are linked on this particular slide.
Yeah, and then we did try to link more resources on our document that we dropped in the chat in the beginning. So thanks so much for joining us. We know that you're in the thick of it this year, and we are here to support you. If you need anything, please always feel free to reach out to us at the IU. Shoot us an email, and we'll get back to you with resources or whatever we can do just to support you in the classroom, and even to support you outside of the topic of collaboration if you need it.
Other than, I want to say thank you as well for your time. We really appreciate your time. We can end the recording. So if you have some more questions or like